Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep on something that I think is pretty relevant to all of us.
Hmm.
It's sacrificial giving.
Right.
And, we're going to be looking at a couple of different sources here.
Okay.
We've got some excerpts about, the famous missionary David Livingstone.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're also going to be looking at a passage that kind of connects what was going on with Livingstone to a message from the prophet Ezekiel.
Interesting.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating to me, at least from, just glancing at these sources, is
Yeah.
how these stories, even though they're separated by, centuries,
Right.
they can really shed some light on this idea of, how do we balance our own personal commitments with, all the stuff we have in our lives
Right.
when
Yeah.
we're trying to strive for something, bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. It's really intriguing how
Yeah.
these tales kind of wrestle with that age-old question of what does it actually mean to dedicate yourself to a higher purpose?
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
to kick things off, we've got David Livingstone,
Okay.
this larger-than-life 19th century missionary who was venturing deep into Africa.
Right.
And, I think a lot of people, at least I knew about his explorations.
Yeah.
But what the sources really highlight
Sure.
is the personal sacrifices that were involved.
Okay.
So, for example,
Yeah.
imagine being away for years on these expeditions and then finally returning back to England,
Oh, wow.
only to find that your family is living in poverty,
Oh, no.
to the point where they had to send your son to a workhouse.
Goodness.
And this is the reality that Livingstone faced.
Wow.
And it gets even more tragic with his wife, Mary Moffat,
Mm-hmm.
who was struggling with ill health and eventually died at just 42.
So young.
I know. It's really heartbreaking when you think about it.
Yeah, Livingstone's stories, often romanticized,
Right.
but these sources really paint a much more nuanced picture.
Yes.
They force us to confront, I think, the human cost of this unwavering dedication.
Mm-hmm.
And so it begs the question, did his commitment to his mission come at the expense of his family's well-being?
Right.
It's a question that I think resonates even today.
Oh, absolutely. It really makes you
Yeah.
consider all these complexities of sacrifice
Absolutely.
and this idea of, surrendering your personal comfort for this greater calling. It's something that we also see in the Old Testament,
Okay.
specifically in the book of Ezekiel. So
Right.
Ezekiel is, preaching to the Israelites who are exiled in Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a community that's struggling
Oh, yeah.
to keep their faith amidst, immense hardship.
Right.
And then God comes to Ezekiel and tells him that his wife is going to die.
Oh, wow.
But he can't even grieve.
Oh, my
He has to
God.
continue preaching
Really?
and use his own personal loss as this living testament to God's power and the importance of spreading his message.
It's amazing how, the source unpacks that symbolic meaning of this.
Yeah.
It wasn't about God being callous or uncaring. It was about demonstrating that
Right.
even in the face of profound personal loss,
Mhm.
that mission
Mm-hmm.
of saving souls from damnation,
Right.
that has to take precedence.
It has to come first.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that following God's path,
Yeah.
it may require us to prioritize spiritual duties
Right.
above earthly attachments.
That passage from Ezekiel, I don't know about you, but it really
Yeah.
struck me. It's such a powerful,
It is.
albeit a challenging concept.
Yeah.
So we have these two figures here, Livingstone and Ezekiel,
Right.
both embodying this idea of,
Mm-hmm.
giving up worldly comfort
Yeah,
for this higher purpose.
for sure.
But how do we apply these principles today?
Right.
Does true dedication always require such extreme,
Mhm.
acts of self-denial?
That's the key question, right?
Yeah.
And the sources offer some practical examples.
Okay.
But I think it's important to understand that this idea of sacrificial giving, it
Right.
takes many forms.
Sure.
It's not just about financial contributions,
Sure.
although things like, tithing,
Right.
which is, giving a tenth of your income to the church,
Right.
that's certainly a part of it.
Yeah.
But the sources really emphasize that it's about a mindset.
Okay.
It's a willingness to prioritize God's will above your own desires.
Okay, so it's not necessarily just about
Uh-huh.
the actions. It's more about
It's about the heart.
the heart behind it.
Okay.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things the source mentions
Yeah.
is, ministers who are dedicating extra time
Right.
to their congregations,
Mhm.
which often means that they're missing out on personal or family time.
Exactly.
And then there's also the act of financially supporting those who are less fortunate.
Yeah.
Even when it means, you know, you might have to tighten your own belt a little bit.
Right. Making those sacrifices.
Exactly. And these are all forms of giving that maybe aren't as dramatic as Livingstone's or Ezekiel's experiences,
Right.
but they still require putting others before yourself.
Absolutely. And it leads to this thought-provoking concept that the source calls complete submission
Complete submission.
to God's will.
Okay.
And it challenges us to go beyond simply doing, the bare minimum.
Right.
It suggests that we should be ready and willing to surrender our possessions, our comforts,
Wow.
even our own plans, if that's what God demands of us.
That's a powerful idea.
It is.
But I have to admit, it also raises some questions for me.
Sure.
How does one reconcile such complete submission with,
Right.
all the complexities of modern life?
Right.
For example, what if caring for an ailing parent
Mm-hmm.
conflicts with pursuing a mission?
Yeah.
How do we navigate those really difficult choices?
You've hit on a really crucial point.
Yeah.
Sacrificial giving isn't about blind obedience
Okay.
or neglecting our responsibilities here on earth.
Right.
It's about seeking wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
discernment,
Okay.
and ultimately aligning our hearts with God's will.
Aligning our hearts.
It's a lifelong journey of
Exactly.
learning, listening, and
Mm.
seeking guidance.
And the source also reminds us that, God himself made the ultimate sacrifice
Absolutely.
by giving his son for humanity's salvation.
Yeah,
And that act sets such a profound example for us.
for sure.
It really calls us to reflect on the depth of our own commitment and our own gratitude.
Precisely. As we've explored these examples from the hardships of a 19th century missionary
Right.
to this profound message of a prophet living in exile,
Mm.
it becomes clear that this idea of sacrificial giving,
Yeah,
it's not a one-size-fits-all concept.
Right.
It's a deeply personal journey. It's this continuous striving to find that balance
Yeah, okay.
between our own well-being
Right.
and serving something greater than ourselves.
So as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
What does sacrificial giving look like in your life?
Yeah.
What can you offer?
Mhm.
Not out of, obligation,
Right.
but out of that heartfelt desire
Mm-hmm.
to contribute to something
Yeah.
larger than yourself.
That's a great question.
That's something I hope you'll continue to ponder,
Yeah.
even after this deep dive.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.